Hi, this is Brenda Metcalf with the Environmental Education Council of Ohio, and we are doing another Eco Career Chat. And today I have with me Dr. Chris Ball. And Chris, could you please tell us what your current job title is and a little bit about what you do?
Sure. I am a research scientist at The Ohio State University. I specifically work at a laboratory called the Electroscience Lab, where we do all kinds of engineering, research, and development for new technologies, for all kinds of applications, communication systems, radars, um, sensors for self-driving cars, and the kind of work that I do, which is developing sensors for environmental monitoring purposes. So when I say sensors, what I'm talking about are devices that can detect the presence of certain things like pollutants in the air or moisture in the ground, or that can detect chlorophyll or other nutrients inside of plants and food products, things of that nature. Some of these sensors are handheld, they're very small, and some of these sensors are on satellites that are currently in orbit around the Earth, and sort of everything in between, on airplanes, on ships, on ground vehicles, and things of that nature. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I've been at Ohio State for 5 years now almost, and before that I spent 15 years at another company here in Columbus called Battelle. And so I do a lot of different things, and I'll try to maybe talk a little bit more about what some of those things are. But ultimately what I do is I use light or ultraviolet or infrared or even microwave types of radiation that interact with things in the environment and get us information about what those things are.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. So, Chris, did you need a degree, I'm guessing, obviously, to do your job? And if so, what is that degree or degrees?
Yes. So I hold what's called a PhD degree. Some people call it a doctorate. PhD actually stands for Doctor of Philosophy, believe it or not. My degrees are in physics. A lot of people who do what I do in the field that I'm in might have degrees in different types of engineering, or they might have degrees in chemistry or biology. So it's really kind of, a lot of what I do is what you would call applied research. So it's kind of at the intersection of engineering and science. So I work with a lot of people who have an engineering background and a lot of people with a science background, and pretty much we have engineers doing science and we have scientists doing engineering, and it's all kind of mixed together. But the PhD degree is something that you would earn after a very long time of studying. First, you would get a high school diploma, then you would go to college and get what's called a bachelor's degree. That's usually after about 4 years. After that, some people will spend maybe a couple of years and they'll work on getting what's called a master's degree. And then maybe 4 to 5 years after that, you keep working and you get what's the PhD degree. So I usually with the PhD, you spend really just a couple of years doing classroom type learning, and the rest of it is hands-on research with a professor, actually for me working in a laboratory. So pretty much for 4 to 5 years as a student, I was more or less full-time working in a lab doing interesting science experiments and things like that.
That sounds really neat. So was there a class when you were in high school that gave you an aha moment or something that pushed you along your STEM path?
I'm not sure I really had a particular moment. I always enjoyed science and math, and my career choice is really kind of a reflection of that. And honestly, I think a lot of my interest in science and math came from my own sort of learning and reading on my own. I kind of knew that I wanted to study physics before I'd ever taken a physics class in high school. But the high school classes were really very important in providing that sort of foundation and getting me interested and continuing to maintain my interest in science and math. But I wanted to actually pose the following. Every class that I took in high school is relevant to what I do today. a lot of what you have to do in a position like mine, you have to write proposals, you have to write reports. So knowing how to write and to think critically, things that you would learn in an English class are very important. A lot of the work that I do is funded by the federal government or state governments. So understanding how U.S. government works, where money and budgets and things like that come from in the government. So when you take a U.S. government course in high school, that's really important to know. Even art and music, I took a lot of in high school that teach you how to think in a different way, to teach you how to be creative. Because in addition to just understanding and knowing a lot of science and math, you have to be able to think creatively to come up with solutions to problems. And at the end of the day, that's what I do. I solve problems pretty much all day long. So I just wanted to impress upon you that every class that you take, whether you go into a field in science or ecology or even if you become a lawyer or doctor or whatever, you're going to use skills that you develop in every single one of your classes.
Good advice. So is there a part of your job that you really love?
I think that the thing I love the most about my job is learning new things. I have the luxury of being in a position where not only do I get the opportunity to learn new things every day, it's required, it's part of my job, it's what I do. I have to learn new things every day so that I can keep up with the latest technology developments. I can understand the latest developments in science. I tend to work on a lot of research projects that are kind of, have some kind of objective by the end of it. And in order to do those projects, every project is different. And I have to spend the first, couple of months of a project really learning to become an expert in whatever that project is about. So just learning new things, that's what I love the most about my job.
That's great. So is there a part of your position that you really don't like or that isn't very fun?
Well, pretty much with any job, you're going to have to deal with a lot of administrative and managerial tasks, and that can just be tedious, sometimes frustrating. It's just really kind of a necessary evil that you have to, you have to have a lot of emails. Like recently, I'm working on a project where we had to order a special chemical from a company, and that special chemical had to be put into a freezer when we received it. And unfortunately, it required a special kind of freezer that allowed you to, because the chemical was flammable. So it was a freezer that could handle flammable materials. And it took about 50 to 100 emails of poking around the university trying to figure out what laboratories have the special kind of freezer that we could put this chemical in for a few months. And it was a huge amount of time that I would have liked to have spent doing other things, but basically I spent hours trying to find a freezer. So occasionally things like that happen, in your job, and you just kind of have to do with it. You do it and get on with it. So the professor that I worked with when I was getting my PhD said one of the most important pieces of advice to me as I was trying to consider, what kind of job did I want to have after I got my degree. And he says, well, regardless of what you decide to do, if you want to go into a university position and become a professor, if you want to go work in industry or develop, products and technologies, in a few years, you're going to spend most of your time just managing things. And that's kind of true. What I really love to do is the science, but what I have to do in order to do the science is manage a lot of things. I have to understand budgets and schedules and making sure I've got the right people working on the job and, all of these kinds of things that take up quite a lot of my time so that I have the opportunity to do fun science stuff.
The necessary evils.
Yes.
So do you have a moment like in your world right now that there's something that that you wish you could have known when you were in high school?
I think sort of building on some of the things I was saying earlier about taking all of these different types of classes. When I was in college, I felt like I really needed to take a lot of math and science classes, that I really need to focus hard on those things. And in the end, and in high school as well, And in the end, I think my time would have been better suited doing other things, becoming a little bit more well-rounded. Because I think that, you know, as I said before, you know, your ability to think creatively, to solve problems, these are things that you learn in all kinds of different classes, and you learn different ways of solving problems in different types of disciplines. So that's the one thing I really wish that I had been a little bit better at when I was in high school as well as in college, was taking a wider variety of classes and learning how to solve problems in those different domains, and then taking what I learned and applying it to the work that I do now.
So was it necessary for your current position to do any kind of volunteering or internships or shadowing?
Um, Not really, although that does happen in the world I work in. My career path was pretty straightforward. I went directly from high school to college, and directly from college to graduate school where I got a master's degree, and then I got my PhD. And then I went basically from that into another type of position called a postdoc, a postdoctoral research position. And that was kind of like not really an internship because I was paid, but it was really an extra couple of years to really learn how to be an expert in the field. And then I went straight from that postdoctoral position to my job at Patel, where I worked for 15 years, and then to my job at Ohio State. So I never really did any kind of internships. Now, that being said, I have, like through my job at Patel, as well as through my current job at Ohio State, I have worked with interns. I have worked with students at the college level. Occasionally, we'll get a student who's sort of between high school and college, who's kind of looking for a job, but really that job becomes more like an internship. So it does happen, and it's actually a valuable thing to do. The great thing about an internship is it allows you to explore different opportunities and try different things. And there's no pressure. If you don't like what you're doing, nobody says you have to keep doing it. But as opposed to having a job, you know, once you start that job and then you decide you don't like it, there's a lot, the stakes are a little higher to decide to do something else. So internships are great for helping to figure out what it is that you really want to do.
So now does your current organization offer opportunities for students to do internships or shadowing at all, or anything like
So
that?
yeah, there certainly are things that we have done in the past. The internships that we offer tend to be for college students to come and work in our laboratories. We have brought in groups of high school students that we've had meetings with, and we've helped advise, you know, like a group of students who are working on like we had a group of students come in that were interested in rocketry, and they came and talked to us because as I said, I've been involved in some projects that involve satellites. And so they came in and we sort of spent half a day with them talking about the work that we were doing with satellites and how that applies to the kinds of things they're doing with their rockets and so forth. So we do that kind of thing. I've had high school students shadow me before, so that's always an option. But a lot of the internships we do are sort of at the college level and higher.
So we will be putting your contact information on our website. So if a student or a classroom would like to get in touch with you about a shadowing opportunity, or even just to chat with you more in depth about what you do, they'll be able to contact you from our website. Chris, is there any last little bit of information that you wanted to share, or bits of wisdom?
Well, I think the most important thing that you can do as a student, whether you're in high school or whether you're in college or even beyond, is try to figure out what it is that you really love to do. Because if you can do what you love to do as a job, it never feels like you're working. It feels like you get to play when you go to work, and that's really, you know, you're very lucky if you can figure out what it is that you love and find a job that allows you to do what you love. That's really the best advice I can give you, is figure out what it is that you really love.
Well said. Thank you very much for joining us today on the Eco Career Chats, and take care of yourself.
Thank you.